Well, let's continue the conversation now with Jim Gallant, a negotiator for the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Jim, thanks for coming to the studio.
Thanks for having us in.
Listen, there's a couple of things I want to address from you of what we just heard, but first I want to begin with a more broad question. So here you are, you're now out on strike. Are you worried that all you're really doing at the end of the day is proving Canada Post irrelevant to Canadians by stopping service?
Well, we're not worried about that, really. You end up with, we're hearing from mayors, premiers, the public saying that they want their service, and you're hearing from small businesses on all the stations that they're not going to survive without Canada Post, because we are the right deal. I won't say the cheapest deal, but we're the right deal in town. They use us, they depend on us, and we want to be there serving them. We don't want to be on strike, but we've been forced into this position by the government and by Canada Post, and it's a really big problem. People are pointing it towards the union instead of pointing it where the problem's coming from.
Okay, and I don't know if you include the minister in that, but we heard from Minister Lightbound last week, and he says the corporation is losing millions of dollars each day, $10 million each day. How is that sustainable?
It's not, that wouldn't be sustainable, but you've got to remember that we've been in a legal strike position since last November, and that's been hanging over the post office all year long. Postage went up in January, and Canada Post actually, in the first 2 quarters, had over $370 million in new revenue. But because they've got this cloud hanging over us, they won't sign a collective agreement. They say they're losing money. You'd have to think, they say 10 million, it's almost an Austin Powers movie when they say it, because what's the real number? What are they losing? They're always using big numbers to try and scare the public.
So you don't believe in the numbers?
I don't believe it's $10 million. I believe they're losing money because we're in a strike position, and fewer customers are using Canada Post, and we're still working, right?
Except, we just heard from Canada Post, and they say the very fact that, less people are using it on a daily basis, as the population grows, at the end of the day, it's untenable, and they need to make rather substantial changes, not just tinkering on the sides, but fundamentally make changes to the corporation, and that does mean a workforce that's adaptable or willing to be adaptable. Are you?
We only go to houses that have mail or product and businesses that have mail and product each day. That's the only ones we're paid to. It's done by a percentage basis. We don't get paid for places we don't go to. And in the 1980s, we had probably about 15,000 more workers, and in the last few years, we've had about 5,000 more workers. We're somewhere around 50,000 workers now. It's less. Routes get reevaluated when there's less mail to sort. There's less sorters. All those things are happening. There's fewer postal workers than there's ever been, and that happens naturally in a fluid motion. And Canada Post, instead of dealing with it that way, is now trying to make major cuts to service. Canada Post shouldn't get to decide what the service is. The government shouldn't get to decide what the service is. Customers and Canadians should get to decide if their mail is going to get to the door. If I send you a parcel or you send me a parcel, I bet you we both expect that parcel to come to our door, somebody to knock, instead of it going a kilometer or 2 down the street.
But would Canadians push back at the cost? Because again, to listen to Canada Post, they've talked about the bargaining that they've gone under. They talk about the economic pressure. They want to explore things like a defined contribution plan rather than a defined benefits plan for retirement. And they say that the union has not been very flexible on that. What do you say to that? Because I hear what you're saying. Yeah, Canadians want to get their parcels, but they also don't want to feel like they are supporting a business that cannot, at the very least, break even.
The minister told Canada Post to fix the management side of it too. They haven't hired any letter carriers lately or clerks lately, but I can tell you today on Canada Post's site, there's a job for a manager of change. So they're going to add more managers because the minister says there's going to be change, instead of using the managers they have, because those managers don't know what they're doing. That's the problem at Canada Post. Doug Ettinger came in somewhere around 2018-19, and Canada Post says they haven't made any money since. that they've been living off of what was in the cupboard, and now they've borrowed money from the government. That's the first time in my 37-year career that the Canadians had to loan Canada Post money. So I have to say that it's the management of Canada Post that's the problem. We agree that we are in a problem right now, and what they say is it doesn't matter how we got there. Well, how do we get out of it with the same people that got us there? That's the problem.
So how do you see this working its way through?
At this point, we want the government to back off on the cuts to the service, because if they cut the service and I'm no longer bringing you your parcel to your door, there's other delivery outfits that will do that, and that's what businesses and Canadians want. So if they cut that service, we're going to get fewer parcels, and it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we need that service level. And then if the government has made a line in the sand last week, and obviously the employer sees that and is emboldened by it. They were going to make us an offer last Friday. They took that offer back, and now they're going to make a different one. Do you think it's going to get better? I don't.
So is this dependent, to end the strike, is this about the government stepping back from its cuts, or the mandate it's now given Canada Post, or is this about Canada Post putting forward a proposal for workers that you're going to be happy with?
Well, there's two things there. So the first thing is that if we get a collective agreement that works for postal workers, obviously, and it needs to be ratifiable by the membership, that will settle the strike. But there still will be a fight around what Canada or what the government has said they're going to do to slash the service. I saw a small town mayor in Ontario yesterday on TV. I've seen a number of business people saying that Canada Post is needed. The government hasn't listened to them, and the government's list of slashes that they made on Thursday is Canada Post's Christmas wish list from last November. It's not the government making policy. It's Canada Post management making policy, and the government following them.
Jim Gallant, I always appreciate the time. We'll speak again. Thank you for this.
Thank you.